powerful superheroes have abilities that can create or even destroy worlds, but that doesn't mean that they're all necessarily the hero you'd want watching your back in a fistfight. Some of you might not even think of this character as powerful, and if you are one of those who don't believe me that Egg is powerful, consider this. He is one of the Five. The Five are a supremely powerful group that allowed the mutants in Marvel Comics to gain control over life and death. Yeah, but at the end of the day, Fabio Medina's part in this, his mutant power, is still just sphere generation. Basically, he creates infertile eggs which can be manipulated to be used in a cloning process by the other members of the Five. It's a pretty weird power, I know. Although maybe not the weirdest mutant power out there, to be honest, but probably pretty close. What is the weirdest mutant power you can think of? For me, it's probably becoming or generating ice cream. Either of those powers. Both of those are pretty weird. Although, I might take the power to make ice cream myself, depending on what the process was, if the process was different. How about you? What mutant power would you want to have? Egg's power, which I'm not sure many of us would want, also makes him the most disposable member of the team when they are threatened, as you could get him to make some spheres in advance, and then even after he dies, you can still, just regen him using the other 4 of the 5 and the spheres that he made himself. So he gets killed the most out of those on the team. Usually voluntarily at least, but like I said, he is kind of the biggest member of this really powerful team. And now for something quite different. We head over to DC, specifically Watchmen. Rorschach is definitely a useful character in general. He happens to gather enough intel to take down one of the smartest men around who the world thought was actually a hero, Adrian Veidt, aka Ozymandias, by exposing him as the villain that he actually is. Or is he? Well, I guess that depends really on your opinion. In Watchmen, I'd say no one is truly like a stereotypical superhero, at least, not by our atypical standards. When we think of like superheroes like Superman or Wonder Woman, these are supremely flawed characters instead, which is kind of the whole point, I think, of Watchmen, as Watchmen is more of a commentary on like the superhero genre, rather than something that was ever really truly intended to like belong to that genre. But I digress. Regardless of how you feel about Rorschach's actions in terms of them being right or wrong, or Adrian's actions in terms of them being right or wrong, Rorschach does manage to defeat Veidt eventually by exposing his action. But at the same time, he doesn't have superpowers himself. He's just kind of an obsessive and likely crazy man. Although he would eventually accomplish his task, he doesn't live to see it carried out, as he is easily killed by Dr. Manhattan when he threatens to confess the truth of Veidt's involvement in the attack on New York through the world. And even then, it does end up coming to light, but it also takes a while before that revelation happens. If we're talking a pure fist fight, Professor X should probably not be your go-to, unless you happen to be on the astral plane, or he happens to be in a body or form where he actually has use of his legs and can, fight a little bit better. For most of his appearances, though, in the comics, he's usually without the ability to like stand up and fight. He's usually confined to his chair, unless of course he is armed with a Shi'ar exosuit. But even then, for some reason, I've always imagined the Shi'ar exosuit to move extremely slowly because it just looks so bulky in the comics. It was like that's what I imagine in my mind. I don't know if that's how it moves. It's a comic, so it's hard for me to see it moving, but yeah. Professor X, while not known for being a skilled physical combatant, actually has the training to be. So, fun fact, Professor X is actually really good at fighting, but he's just not usually as capable when it comes to his fighting prowess, which is also why he's actually pretty good at fighting on the astral plane. But then again, this is also a character whose Ultimate Universe version was defeated by stairs, and that's not me trying to be rude, that's literally the comic. That's what it says. That being said, Charles doesn't really need to be good in a fight, because he could always just like stop you from fighting him altogether by wiping your memory, changing your memory, or just making you go brain dead. But that also hasn't always worked out in his favor as a tactic, to be honest. Onslaught, I'm looking at you. This next one is going to be controversial. I know some people are going to be mad with me for this one, so before you, well, actually me, my fellow nerds, let me acknowledge the first part of the title of this list: powerful superheroes. What I'm really saying here is that John Constantine, or Constantine if you prefer, is one of the most powerful superheroes we have. He is one of the most resourceful characters I know of in comics. He has insane magical understanding and power. He's evaded death countless times and saved the world definitely more than once. He's tricked even the trickiest of demons, but also, yes, sometimes he's kind of useless in a fight. Now, granted, Constantine is capable, but that's not the issue here. It's more the fact that Constantine is a bit more scrappy and improvisational when it comes to how he approaches a fight. He also is a magic user, so he's honestly a bit squishy all around. And even if he happens to have everything together when he approaches combat, he's like super organized, super prepared, he has a tendency to betray his allies and his friends, often going rogue and kind of doing his own thing for his own reason. So yeah, sometimes this makes him kind of useless, or at least not a great person to fight alongside, especially if we're asking those that he has fought alongside in the past. Most people don't trust him, even those that are closest to him, and honestly, kind of for a good reason. Coming up, someone you might not expect to make our cut, it is Wonderman. Okay, so Wonderman is actually really powerful, and honestly, we don't talk about him enough on the channel, which is why I'm both excited to include him here and also a little disappointed in myself for doing so. And that is because I am about to call him useless, so sorry, Wonderman. However, this is simply restricted to a certain time in his career where Wonderman actually preferred to be a pacifist. So while powerful at that point in his superhero career, because he's always really powerful, be pretty useless in a fight because he just didn't want to fight, so haha. While some have disagreed with me on Constantine, I think this one is a pretty universal pick from DC Comics. Detective Chimp is actually a pretty impressive hero, to be real with you. He is considered to be one of the world's greatest detectives, with his skills even rivaling that of Batman. He is supremely intelligent, but Bobo also isn't especially skilled in combat, and he often tends to be inebriated, which makes him not particularly well suited to a fight when he does end up in one. He's incredibly smart, but also often kind of a mess, which is why he makes my cut. Continuing on with another hero who I often feel gets overlooked, despite how powerful he truly is, we have Cipher. Look, I love Cipher, but at the end of the day, he's just not the best fighter. Even though I think people forgot that he was at one point the best fighter, because he used to be able to understand fighting as though it were a language, because that's his mutant power, and of course, using that logic, he should actually be an incredible dancer as well. Is Doug an incredible dancer? Has this ever been confirmed in canon? If you're a mega New Mutants fan or a mega just Doug Ramsey fan and you know, let me know, because I need to know about this. And if this isn't a thing yet in canon, I am asking Marvel to make it so. Let it be known. Someone at Marvel on this, please make this happen. If you're watching this, Marvel, anyone from Marvel, please help a Doug fan out. I know some of you watch. I know some of you do, so yes, in theory, he actually should be a good fighter, but during the Otherworld tournament in Ten of Swords, it seems like this aspect of his powers was dropped, changed, or just straight up forgotten. Doug was back to pretty much square one fighting when training with magic. Really though, I don't hate that change because Cipher is already powerful enough without being a master of physical combat. I don't think he needs it. He can communicate with technology, understand any language, and it's this power set that made him an essential part of Krakoa. Seriously, without him, Krakoa would have actually never been able to happen for the mutants. He was the only one who could communicate with the sentient mutant island. Why he's gone now, probably. As with Wonderman, having power doesn't necessarily mean you always want to use it, or even in some cases, best know how to utilize it, perhaps. This is something our next hero encapsulates, whose interests usually lie elsewhere when it comes to just how he approaches and deals with conflict. Despite being a new god, which you'd think would make him OP, and in fact, honestly it should, Mr. Miracle isn't often known for his fighting prowess. New gods are extremely powerful, godlike aliens. Darkseid is one of them, and Mr. Miracle is one too. But often, Scott-Free just prefers to escape than take someone on in a fight. It's more this preference that makes him not particularly great at fighting. He could stand and fight if he had to, but he'd usually just rather escape because it's kind of his whole thing. It makes sense when you consider his wife also being Big Barda is usually with him, and she's the one who's more skilled in combat, having once belonged to Darkseid's elite guard team of female Furies. So she's just trained in combat, she's super buff, and when you observe that Mr. Miracle also grew up hoping and planning his potential escape from the planet Apocalypse for most of his life, I mean, it kind of makes sense. This is how and why he became a master escape artist, basically, which is usually what he's more known for and what he does, despite his super strength, his durability, and sheer immortality that he gets from being a new god. I don't think I have to say too much about this next one. Destiny is a powerful precog. She can see into the future, and often her visions are quite accurate. The more likely something is to happen, the more clear it will become to her. However, she doesn't have super strength. She doesn't have combat experience or training per se, and she is legally blind, so she probably isn't the best person to pick when it comes to like just a straight up fist fight. That being said, she's still an insanely powerful character, regardless of whether or not she'd win a round of fisticuffs. Like Professor X, you know what I mean? These people don't even need that. Also, she has her wife Mystique to aid her in that kind of battle. So really, Destiny is super OP, but just maybe not like punching stuff. And finally, the one I don't think anyone guessed would be on here, just because I don't think a lot of people think about this character, it's King of Cities. King of Cities is Jack Hawksmoor. When inside a massive city, he is supremely powerful. While in a city, he can communicate with that city, get it to do his bidding, and the city also bolsters his powers. He can see anything a window has seen, gazing into the past literally through it. He telepathically communicates with buildings. His senses are enhanced, he doesn't need to, and he has amazing survival instincts while in a city. He's just built to survive in cities. However, if he finds himself outside of a city, he becomes extremely weak, and in some cases can even die. So fight him in a city, he's seemingly unstoppable. Fight him outside of a city, and a mild breeze would probably just be enough to defeat him. You just stand there and he just fall over. That's about it. I've been myself, Amanda McKnight. Until next time, you stay nerdy.